Thanks for being with us this morning on AM Agenda. Joining me now from Melbourne, Liberal MP Josh Frydenberg, and from Adelaide, Labor MP Nick Champion. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Josh, first to you. Malcolm Turnbull's comments last night, an unhelpful distraction, or is it just Malcolm Turnbull being true to his convictions?
Kieran, look, there's been only one serious revelation this week when it comes to the carbon tax, and that was the government-commissioned research by Deloitte suggesting that carbon tax should be $40 a tonne, which is going to lift household electricity prices and cost by more than $1,100. That's the real issue. As Scott Morrison said, Malcolm Turnbull, the Liberal Party, we're all united in our opposition to a carbon tax which is going to lift the cost of living and household expenditure dramatically.
But
and
you're
not
united behind the policy.
Yes, we are.
You're not united behind the direct action policy.
We are absolutely united behind the direct action policy because
Malcolm
it's
Turnbull's
costed and
not,
well-funded.
Josh, is he?
No,
Malcolm
yes,
Turnbull's
he is. Malcolm Turnbull is opposed to a carbon tax, and we have a clear, decisive, costed policy on direct action where we go out to the market and we find the lowest cost of abatement. And that is funded from the savings that we have identified. Unlike the Labor Party's carbon tax, which is not only a breach of promise by the Prime Minister at the last election, but will lead to sky-high increases in electricity prices, petrol, at a time when families are really struggling with higher interest rates and higher costs of living. So there's a clear alternative.
Let's get Nick Champion on that, because, Nick, that issue must be biting in your electorate, that specific point that Josh referred to there. Regardless of what you say about the coalition policy, it would be a lot cheaper and it will have a lot less impact on the cost of living.
Well, that's just not right, Kieran. I mean, Josh is engaging in a lot of spin to cover up the fact that Malcolm Turnbull last night belled the cat on the so-called direct action policy. He exposed it for the farrago of lies and inconsistencies and, happy thoughts that it might be. But if it sounds too good to be true, normally it is, and direct action is too good to be true. What it really is direct subsidy, the taxpayer directly subsidising the biggest polluters in the country in the most inefficient, ineffective way. And we've got, Mr Turnbull on Late Line saying that, that the Liberal Party policy is a government-run solution which will have an ongoing cost, and we have Tony Abbott saying it's a market-based solution which will be a one-off cost to the budget, and they can't both be right. There's glaring inconsistencies. It's quite obvious that direct action is just a marketing ploy, and really it's highly misleading to the Australian people and my constituents.
Well, Kieran,
I'm confident we'll see through it.
Okay, let's get Josh, your response to that, Josh. But also, I want to put to you the price that Greg Hunt put to the direct action plan yesterday, $15 per tonne. So if you can respond to both of those.
Well, just on Greg Hunt, he is not putting a price on carbon, and we do not support a carbon tax, so that's a mischaracterisation of his comments yesterday. I mean, what I think Nick and his party have to do is come clean with the Australian public as to what the price on carbon will be, because they have government-commissioned research by Deloitte, which was strategically leaked to the paper, saying $40 a tonne. That's over $1,100 a year to the household bill. Now, you've got the Greens, who are Labor's partner in crime on this, saying it should be up to $100 a tonne. Now, that's thousands of dollars on top of a household bill. So, the Greens, who are effectively in power with the Labor government, are actually driving this agenda, and we, in the terms of the public, are left in the dark as to what the actual price will be, and we're being told by Deloitte and government commission research it's going to be $40, which is clearly going to be a very high impost on families.
Okay, before we move on to other issues, Nick, just quickly on that, and the Greens floating and discussing, as Josh referred to there, prices of $100 per tonne. That does nothing for your cause, does it?
Well, it's a hung parliament, so other parties will, have their say, but the government's position has been pretty consistent. it's the government's. We're not in partnership with anybody, Josh. And the reason why you can't explain your own policies, the reason why you can't explain your own policies is just all you've got is a grab bag of negative lines. That's the reason why you can't explain your own policy, which is not direct action but direct subsidy. It'll cost the taxpayers $30 billion, and anybody pretends that that won't come out of schools and hospitals, people's pockets, is just kidding themselves. Greg Hunt's out there telling the truth on occasion. Malcolm Turnbull's out there telling the truth on occasion. But what we have is this, this snake oil salesman approach from the rest of the Liberal Party on climate change, and it just won't wash.
Who's broken their promise, Nick? Who's broken their promise here?
We've got to move on. A couple of other issues. Sorry to cut you off there. The Defence Minister, Stephen Smith, looks like he's in another rift with the hierarchy of the military. Nick, to you, just quickly, if we can get through a few of these issues, what do you think of this report in the West Australian by Andrew Probyn and Nick Butterley that the Minister wants Ken Gillespie, the Chief of Army, as the next Chief of the Defence Force? The hierarchy wants David Hurley, the current Vice Chief of the Defence Force. Another stoush, another rift off the back of the ADFA scandal.
Well, Kieran, I don't think it's in anybody's interest to sort of comment on speculation about personalities, but I'd simply make the point that, we do have civilian control of the military in this country. It is the Minister's and the Cabinet's job to appoint the CDF, so, it's a matter for the Minister.
OK, just quickly, Josh, any thoughts?
Look, it's not helpful to anyone that this debate is playing out in the public. There's clearly tensions at the top. They need to be resolved quickly because defence is a bipartisan area for support and absolutely critical to Australia's national security interests.
On the Malaysia asylum seeker deal, Nick Champion, the Minister responsible in Malaysia has said that the 32 that arrived initially would not be part of the deal. That's a report in the Malaysian Star newspaper. The government needs to finalise this sooner rather than later, doesn't it? Because it's an ongoing headache for you. You're promising deals, but nothing delivered just yet.
Well, the important thing is we're engaged in a region-wide long-term process to resolve what is a problem which bedevils the world. It bedevils Europe, it bedevils America. Unauthorised migration is the big problem of the 21st century. We're engaged with many nations, through the Bali process to resolve this issue. We've got the announcement of an agreement with Malaysia. We're not going to be negotiating with them through the press. We're going to negotiate with them face to face, as you would expect us to, Kieran. And we're going to take our time and we're going to get it right, and we're going to have a long-term solution to what is a very difficult problem.
Josh, the minister responsible, the Malaysian minister, is quoted as saying that this is a very positive move. He says it's pioneering, courageous, noble, and will pick. He's confident that many will pick up the resolve, this sort of approach to deal with the issue across the region.
Kieran, look, it was Julia Gillard who, in opposition, said another boat is another failure. Since 2008, there's been more than 10,000 unauthorised arrivals. Clearly the policy is creaking at the seams with Christmas Island and other places overcrowded. This government has built more detention beds than hospital beds, and it's not only costing billions of dollars to the Australian taxpayer, it's also costing lives. Now, Julia Gillard, in a bit of desperation, has gone out to Malaysia and said, we'll take one of yours, we'll take 4 or 5 of yours, and in return you can take one of ours. A really bad deal for Australia. And now you have the Malaysian Home Affairs Minister coming out and saying, actually, we won't take any of yours until this deal is finalised. So what has happened to the over 100 people that have come in the last 3 days to Australia by unauthorised means? This policy is clearly a failure. This government has clearly lost control of its borders. It's costing lives. It's costing billions of dollars.
Nick.
And they go and can I just say, Kieran, finally, that Julia Gillard said she won't pick up the phone to Nauru because Nauru is not a signatory to the Refugee Convention. But lo and behold, neither is Malaysia.
Yeah.
So there's no inconsistency either.
Okay, well, we've got about a minute left, Nick, if you want to respond to that. And just, you know, the bottom line is that these asylum seekers remain in limbo while the government is methodical, you say, but these asylum seekers, for their part, they're stuck in limbo, aren't they?
Well, look, just regarding what Josh said, look, John Howard had 10,000 illegal, arrivals come here, and that triggered a policy response. But that policy response wasn't sustainable domestically, and it certainly wasn't sustainable internationally. We want to get a sustainable solution. We want to resolve these issues once and for all with our partners. It makes sense to take refugees from our own region rather than from Africa, where John Howard took them from, and rather than
what
from
are you
the
saying,
Middle
Nick?
East.
No refugees from Africa. Is that what you're saying?
No. Well, what we're
That's what
saying
you
is
just
it makes sense to take
That's what you
refugees
just said.
from our own region. You've been
All right.
critical. You've been critical of our deal. It makes sense to take refugees from our
Gents,
own region.
I've got to wrap up. My apologies. We could go for another hour, I'm sure, but Nick Champion, Josh Frydenberg, great to see you
Thanks.
both, gents. Thanks.
Thanks,
And that's all
Kieran.
for this
Thanks,
edition of AM Agenda. Make sure you join Ashley Gillen, 1:30 Eastern for Lunchtime Agenda. I'm Kieran Gilbert. Thanks for your company.